a death can result in a real loss to the family and a benefit to the person that killed them.
If you've lost a loved one and you think you might have a wrongful death case, how do you find out? What do you need to know and how do you get help? We're going to find out the answer to those questions right now because that's what we're going to ask on today's episode of Ask the Lawyer. Hi again, everybody. I'm Rob Rosenthal with AskTheLawyers.com, and my guest today is Alaska attorney Mark Choate. I want to tell you right off the top, if you want to ask Mark questions of your own, it's easy. Go to AskTheLawyers.com, click the button at the top that says Ask a Lawyer, and you can ask right there, or you can call the number on the screen when we talk to Mark. Mark, it's good to see you again. Thank you for helping us out.
Great seeing you, Rob.
So let's kind of start at the beginning. Wrongful death, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but tell us from the law's point of view, what constitutes a wrongful death?
A wrongful death is generally when someone's death is caused because somebody else has done something which breached a standard of care. For example, the driver that runs through a red light, the doctor who doesn't follow accepted procedures and causes someone's death, sometimes even intentional acts, so someone murders somebody. All of those can have a civil component, which is a wrongful death claim, which allows the estate of the family and often the individual family members, if there are dependents, to bring a claim for the loss of that person's life.
And what's the difference then, as far as from your standpoint, of a wrongful death case as opposed to say a catastrophic injury case? Is it that the victim is no longer there to represent?
No, you basically represent the victim through the estate. When a wrongful death, when we get a wrongful death case comes in and we decide we're going to pursue it, one of the first things we have to do normally, because people don't often set up estates, is we set up an estate. We file what's called a probate action. We have generally a family member, the spouse or someone close, become the personal representative, and then that personal representative has the authority from the court to pursue all remedies available for that death. And those remedies generally kind of fall into two categories. The first category is the pre-death claims, because sometimes you might be injured and it might take some seconds or minutes or hours or days or months till you die, and you have what's called a survival claim for that time period of loss, which is all of the suffering the person had. And then you have the wrongful death claim, which is once the person dies, the claims that can be brought under your state's law. And every state approaches it differently, but generally speaking, if you have statutory heirs or dependents, meaning people that you supported, relied upon you, or would rely upon you, there are claims that they can bring through the estate for the losses of your support, care. There also can be consortium claims by family members, and every state does it a little differently. But there's a variety of claims, and then you have basically the claims for the loss to the estate because the person no longer is able to earn money. And those claims are weirdly, can be surprisingly small. So what you'll do is you'll take someone's expected earnings over their life. You'll reduce that by their expected consumption, the money that they would have that spent to support themselves. Mm-hmm. And then you take that number and you reduce it to what's called present value. So if we invested a certain amount today, what would that number be at the end of their life? And those cases are often based on education. If the more education you have, or the more education we can claim and provide that would support, they'd say this person was likely to finish high school. They were likely to get some college. They were likely to finish college. They're likely to get some post-college work. Those will have a direct impact on the value of that claim.
What if the heirs are minors? Does that complicate things at all?
No. If the heirs are minors, you would always have a personal representative, or you often will have a guardian ad litem, somebody that you'll get or you'll have the court appoint for the minors to represent their injury to make sure that they are protected. Sometimes when you have multiple claimants, you have multiple kids. Some courts will require a guardian for each child. But yes, the loss is not only the loss of earnings or income, but it also is the loss of guidance, the loss of being there when a daughter is married or a son gets ready to go to the military. What's it like not to have your father or mother there? So minors have claims, and often people don't realize it. And all states have what are called statutes of limitation, which are a certain period of time in which you have to bring that claim.
Right.
Frequently, minority will extend that time, what's called a legal word called tolling, for a period of time. But but it's always best to get to a competent lawyer sooner than later to make sure that you don't miss a statute of limitations. Because if you do, you're flat out of luck. The law will not care about your loss. They will enforce that statute of limitations.
You kind of referenced this a little bit ago, Mark. I would assume, and maybe you've had some experience with this, that sometimes what starts out as a catastrophic injury case, and maybe you've been hired to represent somebody, could turn into a wrongful death case. Do you have to kind of change direction on that, or how does that handle?
No, you don't really have to do much different. The biggest issues in those cases will be that you'll no longer have future care costs. So, for example, it's one of the terrible things about many states' laws, including Alaska's, where I primarily practice, is that if someone dies, it cuts off a number of sorts of claims. And if you have a state where there are caps or ceilings on the kinds of damages you can get, a death can result in a real loss to the family and a benefit to the person that killed them. So, for example, in Alaska, if you're injured and we have caps on general damages, meaning pain and suffering, disfigurement, loss of enjoyment of life, you can have a scar on your face, and our caps are $1 million. You can get up to $1 million. But if you kill somebody here, the cap, our Supreme Court has found, is limited to $400,000, which is awful, because there's actually an economic benefit for killing people. And I plan to challenge that in court fairly soon, because I think those caps send a terrible message to everybody, and they undervalue the loss for the family when they lose their loved one because of somebody else's bad conduct.
It already, just from the little short conversation we've had, Mark, it's clear to me it's complicated, and it's really important in a wrongful death case to have an attorney who understands all the ins and outs of this sort of thing.
It is. Often, either, the first thing that will happen if there is an injury like this is often the insurance companies may contact the family directly and say, hey, we'll send you a check. And sometimes those checks can be pretty small, and the family doesn't know what the value is, or they don't know what levels of insurance may be available or what kinds of claims can be made. They could really lose not only a lot of money, but sort of, the support, a value, an economic value for the loss of the individual. And it's always hard to set a dollar value on anything, and especially loss of life, especially perhaps a loss of a child's life. But it's all our courts allow. It's all our system allows is to provide a dollar value for that. And it's the responsibility of the lawyer to do that and to make sure that the family gets some compensation in terms of dollars, which will be there for education, will be there to provide as a wife or a husband may age, will make up in a very small, tiny way the enormity of the loss for the family.
It's always interesting whenever we talk, Mark. Thank you for making some time to answer our questions.
You're welcome, Rob. It's great to see you again.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Ask the Lawyer. My guest has been Alaska attorney Mark Choate. I'll remind you again, if you'd like to ask Mark questions of your own, it's easy. Go to askthelawyer.com. Click the button at the top of the page that says Ask a Lawyer, and it'll walk you right through the very simple process. Thanks for watching. I'm Rob Rosenthal with Ask the Lawyers.